Register to vote is this Friday, but even the people in Western North Carolina who are registered to vote question whether they'll be able to perform their civic duty. Just minutes ago, the State Board of Elections voted unanimously to give the hardest hit counties more flexibility in how they conduct their elections. WRAL Capitol Bureau Chief Laura Leslie joins us right now live with what those changes could look like, Laura.
You know, North Carolina is no stranger to holding elections after hurricanes and natural disasters. I mean, Hurricane Matthew hit us just less than a month before the 2016 presidential election. But this disaster is larger than anything election officials have had to deal with this past century. That's part of why the State Elections Board voted unanimously just minutes ago to allow county election boards in those 13 hardest hit counties to use different methods to get ballots to and from voters who may be stranded by damage from Helene. In some places, voting sites have been washed away, and county officials will have to use temporary sites or buildings to conduct voting at or near those precinct locations. If county boards approve, multi-partisan teams they appoint will be allowed to go to disaster shelters and other areas where aid is being provided to help people cast their absentee ballot. Those teams will also be able to collect those ballots and bring them back to the County Board of Elections so voters won't have to rely on the mail to return them. State Board member Stacey Eggers lives in Watauga County. That's one of the 13 counties included.
We will continue to make voting accessible to the voters. And whether we need four-wheelers, horses, or helicopters, this disaster highlights the need for consistency in our work and making sure that we get to the locations that the voters expect us to be.
The emergency resolution they passed today would also allow voters in those counties to return their absentee ballots in person on Election Day at any precinct. That's something that's not generally allowed for most, under the law. And voters who've been displaced by the storm would be able to submit their ballots to county boards in other counties where they're staying, and those counties would then return those ballots back to the home county for them. Now, coming up at 2 o'clock today, we're going to hear directly from State Elections Director Karen Brinson-Bell about what we know about the conditions of voting sites in those 13 most affected counties and what the state is prepared to do to make sure they're up and running when early voting starts in 10 days. Laura Leslie, live in Raleigh.
There are numerous ways you can help victims of Helene. Today, the State Farmers Market will accept donations until 4 o'clock. WRAL's Kelsey Coffey reports from the State Farmers Market in Raleigh, where volunteers are collecting vital supplies for people in Western North Carolina.
Thousands of supplies have been collected here at the State Farmers Market in just 4 days. So you can see some of those supplies are lined up here. It includes non-perishable food items, toiletries, personal hygiene products, anything that people will need that they've lost after the storm. Multiple trucks will take these supplies to Western North Carolina later today. Organizers here are estimating that they will pack up 225 bins today. This as President Biden just approved more federal support for Helene recovery. 500 active duty troops were ordered to head to North Carolina last night. We caught up with State Farmers Market manager Monica Wood. She says she spoke with teams in Western North Carolina earlier today about their needs.
I said, is there anything that you know that you need that you don't have? And they said, we need everything. And they're still kind of putting a list together so we can make sure on this first truck that we have some of those basic necessities that they don't have on there.
All of these supplies that you see here will be sent to the Western North Carolina State Farmers Market. And then from there, crews will decide where to distribute all of these items to best support people who are in need. Kelsey Coffey, WRAL News in Raleigh.
And happening right now in the WRAL Live Center, we just heard from Governor Cooper and members of FEMA. They just stepped off the podium about 5 minutes ago, but they were talking about recovery efforts from Helene in the western part of our state. Cooper says there is progress. He says he is so thankful for the federal and state officials as well as volunteers who are working so hard to help bring relief. He says right now there are 1,700 active duty members in the state right now. Search and rescue efforts are still going on. He says he knows there is work to do, but North Carolina is resilient. Also, FEMA saying they have 3,400 federal responders from 20 different agencies. They say this is a big team, but this is what is required. They will be in North Carolina as long as it takes.